Welcome everybody to the After Dark Show. I'm Don Rogers. Joining me again tonight is a guest that I've had on 2 times before, and I'm bringing her back a third time because she is just an absolute fountain of wonderful information and one of the most fascinating people I've met along my journey to my remembering and understanding of all things spiritual and paranormal and wonderful about this universe. Um, she is an author and a public speaker and the founder of the Redo Spiritual Wellness Clinic right here in my backyard in Drumheller, Alberta. Sonya Roy, thank you for coming back.
Hi, it's always a pleasure.
Oh, I just like you have 6 years at least on your website, and like there's just so much, like you could spend weeks in there with the information that you have compiled, and your talks are, it's literally like being in the room. Like I said before we went on, I just watched this one again, and it's like sitting in the room with you having a chat. The only thing is it's not interactive, and that's the benefit of the show, is I actually get to ask the questions. But it really is well set up. Like I absolutely love the way it's a very cozy, warm feeling, and it's a lot easier to ingest the information as it comes out.
Thank you. But that is the purpose of those videos, right? It's not about selling you something. It's not about promising you, oh, I'll tell you the 3 ingredients you need to put in your morning coffee to lose weight, and then 3 hours later they want to sell you something, right? I just despise that. I value people's time, and if I'm going to spend an hour and a half putting something together, I want it to, once you've watched it, that you feel that you've understood what I'm trying to say, because what's the purpose otherwise, right? And that at least maybe it's not everything, but it's enough to get you curious, to get looking for more or dig deeper. And that's why we have over 60 different videos available, you know.
Yeah. Oh, and like I know we went through this in previous, but like the amount of knowledge about this, and I just, if we can give everybody a quick snippet of what set you on this path of understanding energy and working with energies in the manners that you do, because like you have so many modalities and so much information that you've shared. It's just amazing. I just want to get everybody back on the same page as to what kicked all of this off.
Well, okay. So first of all, it sounds like it's a lot of different modalities because a lot of people will specialize in one, but it I would say that they're all doors leading to the same room, right? So they're not separate, they're all linked. And the more you start practicing one with the other, you're starting to see how they're starting to connect and how they're starting to interact. And in the more advanced classes, that's when I know the light goes on in my students' head, because they're like, oh, so you mean when I'm doing this, I can incorporate that, and then I can tag it along with, and then it all unfolds for them. And then I know they get it, right? But you need to have enough practice and experience in a few of the different modalities to see how they start connecting with each other. So you need to practice quite a bit and get good at it, obviously, to start seeing the connection, right? But what got me on this journey is, first of all, when I was very little, and this is as far back as I remember. So I'm sure it's been happening my entire life. But I remember starting about 4 years old, I could see my grandma, who had passed away, come visit me every night, tuck me in, and oftentimes take me to either a different time or a different space, meaning I could travel to present day Peru, or I could travel through, I went through the ancient pyramid of Egypt when I was initiated in the Grand Pyramid there. And then she showed me the initiation. She says, you need to remember this because this is important. And then she would, as I'm watching this like a movie, she would instruct me on why was I there? What was I doing? Why did I learn this? Why did I choose that? And then as I grew older, I had these experiences talking to trees, and trees talk back. And I'm not the only one saying this, but there's people who just do that. They just communicate with plants and trees, right? And while I was playing in the tree, I always had two fairies to play with. And so to me, this is perfectly normal. It took years for me to realize that not everybody sees fairies and not everybody talks to trees. This was all new to me. So when that happened, I was about 15. And so that kind of put me a bit in the box. I was like, oh, hang on a second. What do you mean you don't know what I'm talking about? What do you mean you don't know energy? And a friend of mine was having a headache. I said, I could take care of that for you. Would you want me to do that for you? And she's like, yeah. And she thought I was joking. So I took the headache away. And she's like, oh my God, you're a witch. And so people's reactions were like way, way off. And I'm like, no, I'm not. That had nothing to do with witchcraft. I'm just, it's energy. And your energy is, it's all stuck. So I open it so it's circulating again. So a lot of things happened at around that time that were scary, negative, and sent me down a pit, if you will. And it took me several years to climb back out. But once I climbed back out, I decided that I was going to refocus my life on that. The ability to move energy, the ability to heal myself. And it felt like as a cloud or a blanket went over all this knowledge, you know what I mean? When I was afraid and then when I was in pain and I had no one reminding me, tapping me on the shoulder going, hey, remember this? You know all this. What are you doing? Use this stuff, right? And I know we're not talking about Akashic record, but before you're born, you envision a life for yourself. And it's based on the karma you came to resolve. It's based on the things you want to accomplish because you want to leave the earth a better place than where you found it, right? This is where we've been evolving. Things have been changing. We're not still cavemen looking for fire and shelter, right? And in order to help yourself on this journey, you put, I would say, significant event that will trigger a response in you. And this is something that you, Don, will relate to because you've had these events happen recently that, told you, listen, boy, it's time for you to stop and look around, open your eyes and, start asking questions. This is your time. Because eventually, in order to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, if you wait too long, you're gonna run out of time here. So this is now the time, now or never. We need to start going, right? This is where we need to start. So everybody has this kind of leeway for experimenting, screwing up, bad choices, and catching up again, right? So there's no judgment in anything I'm saying. And one of the important steps on my journey was a trip to Peru. And that came, right, so let me backtrack. The first part of my life was supposed to be filled with love. If I had that security of being loved, I wouldn't have fallen into that pit of darkness. But I wasn't loved. I was mistreated severely. And that led me to forego the spiritual search. And I went looking for love instead, which, you're looking for love in all the wrong places, which, disappoint you even more, which, makes you even more depressed, right? And there's the hole. So when I woke up from this nightmare and I decided that I realized my mother was a narcissist and so was my ex-husband, and I needed to learn to love myself because if I didn't love myself, no one was going to love me. I got put back on the right trajectory. And the trip to Peru, which presented itself when I was 18, 19, I didn't go on because I was living on my own. I was paying all the bills. I was paying for my college and university all in my pocket. There's no way I was going to drop a semester to go gallivanting 3 weeks in Peru, right? It's just get your shit together, get back on track here, right? So it presented itself again. And so I was able to go to Peru in 2006 and met with a shaman there. And that finally got me back on track. And I've been on that train for now, 19 years? Am I doing the math? Yeah, 19 years. So, I'm not saying that I'm perfect and I don't, deviate or make mistakes. However, my life is a lot easier. I'm a lot happier. And all of my actions are oriented to, first of all, it was about healing me. Any healer who tells you they haven't healed themselves, I wouldn't trust them, right? You walk the journey and then you can tell other people how the journey goes. That's what I believe, right? So I've been on that journey. I healed myself, and now I've gathered enough knowledge um, that I can share that with others to allow them to find their own path. So it's not about creating mini-me's, right? A bunch of minions that are all doing what I'm doing. That's not the point. The point is to allow you first to find out what your wounds are, then heal those wounds. And I will accompany you on that journey in many different ways, through the podcast, through my books, through sessions here, right? There's many ways to get into that. But then when you're strong and you're fully capable, embodied individual, then you find your own thing. And that's where it's wonderful, because like I'm hosting this fair in September here in Drumheller, and almost 40 of the 59 vendors are all Reiki master, right? Which is funny. And so I tell them, are you something else? Because if you're just a Reiki master, you won't cut it at this fair, right? Everybody else is a Reiki master. You got to bring you there. And all of them have used the Reiki to heal themselves, because it's all about the energy. It's all about the meditation. It's all about the basics of what you actually need to do to start healing and gathering your own energy and not stealing from other people. And then the light went on, and they all do something unique and different, which is so lovely. So it's in their little blurb. someone said to me, did you like copy and paste and forgot to take that out? I'm like, no, there's that many Reiki Master Healer in that show. So yeah, there you go. Does that answer the question?
That is wonderful, and you've actually got me writing notes already. So one of the things you touched on there was losing sight of this understanding. That's actually something I was literally just talking about on another show, is like, I know at a much younger age, I was as intelligent, as in tune as I was now. And then I was broken over and over and over again. And, this all just kind of went away. This understanding, this perception of reality, this even wanting to know about it just kind of dissipated into nothingness. My question is, and I guess it's asking your opinion more than anything, is do you think that happens because our emotional frequency lowers to that extent that we can't perceive that information or receive that stream? I don't know which one it would be, but what would your take be?
Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to open my heart and make myself extremely vulnerable, which is not my favorite thing to do. I'll do it because I know you're providing a safe space for me here. I was happy with the tree and the fairies. I wasn't feeling love, but I was at least able to still be happy. But the severe beatings I was getting from my mother kind of were, creating this fear. With my mother being a narcissist, it also created hypervigilance. And as a child of a narcissist, you start questioning your mind. Because there are things that were very real, but she would say, oh, you dreamed about that, and that's your imagination. So at one point, I wouldn't talk anymore because I wasn't sure. And I was intelligent enough to ask myself, am I losing my mind? I was like, I wasn't a dumb child. So, and then she did try to actually, beyond the beating, try to kill me. And then that sent me into the system, into foster care, where I got raped. And so this is the place that I'm supposed to be protected and feel safe. And I'm not feeling safe whatsoever. So I had to say, I don't want to lay charges to get out of there and go back. And you know what I mean? But then nobody supported me. Nobody was, and I was, I had 6 brothers. I had a sister. There were people, there was aunts and uncles, and no one came to help the child, which is all I was, right? That created that pit inside of me. So where there should have been light, there was no light anymore. And all that we're doing now is about light. So as you said, there's this frequency. Now, is it an emotional frequency? I think it's a frequency that adds up the physical body, which got literally broken, the emotional, which got destroyed, but also the mental, right? My ability to think and my ability to save myself, and I was just a child, and also the spiritual. I was mad at God. I remember yelling at God, going, "What are you doing? What is this really necessary? Do I have to go through this?" Because I failed to see where we're going with this. You're just destroying me. You're scaring me. You're hurting me. What is this? How is this going to eventually pay off to be a good thing? So I'm still connected to, the spiritual aspect, but I'm feeling so lost because I don't understand anymore. Nothing makes sense. And that led to poor choices. Now, I was drinking alcohol. I was trying pot. I was looking for a boyfriend that would love me, and they all took advantage of me. Now, can I be mad at them? They were boys, and I gave it away, so they took it, right? So all of those things made me unable to feel happiness anymore. It wasn't about joy anymore. It was about surviving. So someone who's ever had to survive will understand what I'm talking about. It's not about planning for future fun things. Nah, you're like, okay, do I have enough money to eat today? Am I able to, I was living on my own. So forget cable, I wouldn't have had a cell phone. I didn't have a phone. If you needed to reach me, you could reach me when I was at work, and then you could leave a message for me there if I wasn't there. Couldn't afford a phone. I was working in the daycare, so I would eat the leftover of the kids' lunch, right? This is how I managed. Like, it was almost to the minute of living. Never mind making plans. Never mind. Forget meditation. I would sit at night with all the bills and all the paperwork and trying to make things work. I couldn't get beyond the survival of the third dimension. So in order to be at the vibration, you have to get out of fear. You have to get out of constant this hypervigilance. You have to find a moment of peace where you can get your thoughts together. And that just didn't exist for me for a decade.
I'm trying to compose myself, and I want to thank you for the level of share you just had. And that was like listening to a parallel life of my own. I understand everything you just said, and it makes perfect sense to me.
Right? So if you're in a suffering beyond understanding, and you get no support, and you get no one telling you, "I'm so sorry this is happening to you," if there's no one offering to help, and there's no one offering to just even give you a hug, you get into this is why I call it a dark hole. You're like, wow, there's no one. I'm just sinking, and there's no one showing me a lifeline here. So how deep is this gonna go? Is this gonna swallow me? And it almost did. I was suicidal. I wanted to die. And I went from being this happy child, having fun talking to fairies, to wanting to die, right? So, and interestingly enough, I don't know, there's a part of your brain, there's a safety mechanism in your brain, and it went click, and there's a little voice that says, "But you have 3 children." And that was the line. I can't leave. I put 3 people on this earth. I need to look after these 3 kids, so this doesn't happen to them, right? And that somehow drew up the courage I needed to get a divorce, to leave. And it was not easy, right? It was hard because I was a fraction, a shadow of myself. But even that shadow hung on, and then I rebuilt and found a way, right? So yeah, it's finding that sliver of light. You need that little reach into this darkness that lets the light in, and you're like, oh, hang on, there's still light. There's still a way out. I just gotta go into this light. And yeah,
I totally get it. And I even remember my click moment, and it's not something I'm anywhere near proud of, but I also don't hide from my past. My click moment was waking up in a jail cell after I had destroyed our kitchen for no apparent reason. I don't know if it was demonic possession or just a blackout drunk. I had that moment where I realized that version of myself no longer needed to exist, and then I started to evolve into this. Right? It was that moment of like, I can't be this human anymore. This doesn't work. I was so densely immersed in the 3D because of pain of needing knee surgery and blah blah blah, and
Mhm.
poor employment and poor living circumstances. So turning to alcohol and burying it with that, and I just woke up the one day and I kind of was having this internal conversation. I was like, "Look, you need to go."
Yeah.
And he was like, "What?" And I'm like, "Your time is done here." And he's like, "Oh." And that aspect of me just kind of was gone.
You see, that aspect of you is what was trying to help you cope with the pain and the being broken.
Mhm.
And that's why I say there's never any judgment in when I meet people or when people share things with me, because um, I'm in no position to judge somebody's pain. You know what I mean? And how they're going to cope with this pain if they don't know any better, if they've never had anybody show them. How could you expect someone to do something they don't know? They don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I consider what I do so important, is to try to help people find that light and look at the wounds like you did, frankly saying, okay, well, I caused this, I'm responsible for that action, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not responsible for being the broken, someone else broke me, but now they're not interacting with me anymore, I'm not under their influence anymore, and so now I'm the one in charge, I need to make different choices.
100%. That's dead on. Thank you so much. That, and even that is part of healing. Like that whole conversation is a healing thing because it's good to get those emotions out because you can't just let them stagnate inside you because it serves no purpose.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately, we live in a world that discourages us from being emotional and talking about it. Don't cry. Everything's fine. No, everything's not fine. Can we discuss about the fact that it's not fine? Can you let me cry? I'm sad. And it was quite a big fight and like with my family, right? Like it makes them feel awkward that I'm crying. And I'm like, and then my son is crying, and then they're like, why are you crying? Well, we lost our dog. This dog was part of our life for 15 years. We're sad, so we're watching a stupid movie of this dog that keeps dying and reincarnating, so every time the dog dies we're like bawling ourselves. And I'm like, it's a healthy emotion to recognize this loss, and the faster we can go through this loss, the faster we can recognize the pain, we can deal with it and move through it and then be done.
Absolutely. I That's something that Kyla and I have been doing a lot of. Like, I couldn't ask for a better partner during this experience that I've been having because she's been in the driver's seat for longer than I have with understanding what's going on, but she's also wanting to heal herself. So like we will literally, and not in an aggressive, like mean or snarky way. It's like, hey, I see your programming there. Do you know what you just did? And we both do it to each other. And at first it was like, ow, my feelings. But now it's like, oh, shit, you're right. And she'll do the same thing. It'll be like, she'll point out something I've done. And it's like, oh, shit. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Like, and
Absolutely.
it's that admitting it that just fast tracks you through the traumas. And once
Absolutely.
you pass through the traumas is when you start to evolve.
Well, I have a roommate, and sometimes because I've been programmed by my mother and my ex-husband that I'm a difficult person to live with, and I'm a blah 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 blah, right? So I'm very careful because I really like this roommate. She's a great person, and I tell her right away. I said, okay, I'm feeling this way. It's got nothing to do. You haven't done anything. But this is how I'm feeling right now. I don't need you to save me, rescue me, or do anything for me at this moment. But I would like to sleep in today, right? And then she's like, this is so weird. It's a weird way of talking. But she's like, I love it because you're right. The first thing I would have taught is I did something, because that's her programming, right? She got blamed for everything. So and then she's like, this is very freeing to know this you're allowed your emotion, and this is your emotion, and it's got nothing to do with me. So we've found this really beautiful balance where like you say, right, you're poking that bear going, there's something going on, would you like to talk about it? Because I can feel it, I can see it, I can see the little black clouds brewing over your head. Even if it has nothing to do with me, you know that you can talk to me about it. Maybe talking to me about it, we can find a solution together, or inspire you to find a solution, right? So yeah.
I've actually been noticing that more and more. Like, I've gone back to my 9 to 5 job and all that wonderful stuff, but that means I have to interact in, modern society with a lot of people because I drive through Calgary and I go here and there and there's people there and there's a construction site or I'm in a public park or whatever, right? I'm noticing if I give people more of an positive interaction, I'm getting the same feedback. Like, I will do just about anything to make people feel important and as though they're the center of attention while I'm speaking to them. And it really does change the way that they react. And if you actually listen to what the person says and base your response off of that instead of just waiting for your turn to talk, which most of us do nowadays, it really elevates your interaction. Like, I enjoy my job and I drive a septic truck. Okay. I enjoy my job because of the people I get to talk to, the beautiful scenery I get to go to horse ranches, I get to go to like public parks, and I meet all of these amazing people. I meet homeless people. I'll share my lunch with them, and it's spectacular because you give somebody an apple when they're not expecting to eat that day, and you can feel them hit you with that thank you. Like, it's gross, and I've said this before. The first couple of times I did it, you could see them looking for like, okay, where's the camera? And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this is just a gift. This is just for you. I've been homeless. I love you. Here's some food.
Yeah.
And spreading that through modern society, like, if I have to be there to exist in this construct right now because I need money, I'm going to do it in the most positive manner that I possibly can. And I'm going to be the infection that spreads through, because like, that homeless guy is probably going to be happy and talk to somebody else in a different manner today because of the apple I gave.
But it's not, honestly, it's not what you do, is how you do it. Right? I think we need to put back humanity inside humans. I think sometimes dogs are more humans than humans are. I've just recently got back from Japan and Korea, and I'm so happy that in Japan, because I don't think they like foreigners very much. At least that was my impression. I was glad I was traveling with a companion, but I was like pointing out to her, look, no one is looking. They're all in their phone, and no one is looking up. No one is making eye contact. No one is willing to communicate. It felt so weird. I felt like an invisible alien visiting a planet, observing this planet and making commentary. It was just like out of this world. And then I landed in Korea, and I'm sitting on the bus, and I'm really struggling because Google is not very great in Asia. So it's not working, and it's sending me in the wrong direction. So I have no choice but to ask people in my very broken Korean, directions and help. And these people were just amazing. They were using their phone to show me, right, the translator on their phone. We talked through the phone translator. They were smiling. A completely different experience. But these people were willing to interact. They were willing to make eye contact. They were, it was so different. I think we need to be back to interacting. We need to be back to acknowledging other humans around us. And, I don't know what's stopping people from communicating, if they're that afraid or if there's something else underneath, but yeah.
That's my take on it. Like I said, and then we'll get into the Psych stuff and
Yes.
the natural healing, because I know that's a huge part of it. Yeah, just to finish that off, I'm going to reiterate, I drive a septic truck. I have had people step in front of me because they can't stop doing this and look at me when they're like 2 inches from my bumper. And it's like, do you know you almost died covered in poo because you wouldn't stop looking at your phone? Like, really?
Yeah. But we're not off topic, really, because we're talking about what our vibrational rate was, but also where our thoughts are, right? So Psyche is one way to reprogram ourselves when we've been operating under false assumption or false beliefs, or something that you don't even know is part of your programming. The way I explain it to people is, imagine that your subconscious is a jukebox, right? So what's inside the jukebox? A bunch of singles, right? That's how the jukebox work. So you have always one song playing in this jukebox all the time. It's 24/7. It's running this jukebox. It there's maybe 50 songs playing, but nonstop, right? So the songs that are playing might be something you don't even know is there, but you heard it so much while growing up that it became one of the songs in your jukebox. Now, we'll take you, Don, for an example. I'll put you on the spot. What did you grow up hearing?
Oh, this, you're accident prone. Um, and that one still affects me to this day.
Okay, we need to change that.
Um, like, I'm not kidding. I have a major injury once a year, and that has happened since I was born.
There you go. So inside your subconscious, I will take that one because it's flagrant and easy to deal with. So you have this song that says you're accident prone, so at least once a year you're gonna get an injury serious enough for you to realize you're accident prone, and that's part of the song that plays. So obviously it's playing, so it's building energy until boom, there's the accident, there's your injury. Okay, and then I'm sure you say, I'm good for another year. Right? This is how crazy this thinking is, so programmed inside of yourself that you'll say, oh, I'm relieved because now I'm good for another year, right? So with Psych, we can change that in like 5 minutes. So another thing that I have kept my dad hearing was, you have to work hard, right? You need to work hard. And I remember one time I said to him, I said, okay, so, I'm kind of tired of working hard because working hard is difficult. So why is it that I have to work hard for? What's the purpose of this working hard? And he looked at me again like an alien from another planet. He's like, well, because. I said, no, explain to me, why do I have to work hard? So what he was trying to say is, if you're honest, you have to get up every day to go to work to make an honest living. So that's why you have to work hard. I said, but does it have to be hard? If you love what you do, getting up in the morning is not so hard. And then, if it's really the job for you, you don't have to get up in the morning. I can get up at 10 and go to work, right? It doesn't have to be hard. But what he was trying to say is, you have to make an honest living. I said, okay, well, I can. So I took this song inside of me that kept saying you have to work hard, because up until that moment, it was hard to make a living. I threw that out and I put the new one, I will make an honest living. And then it stopped being hard. Interestingly enough, everything got to be easy. Because for a lot of people here probably don't know, but I was an RCMP officer, right? So I worked night shifts, the rotating shifts. It was complicated with kids and single mom. And then when I said, okay, enough with the working hard, I'll make an honest living. So I'll make my 40 hours a week. I'll do what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm at work, but it doesn't have to be hard anymore. And I got given a 9-to-5 job. So then it was simple, because I could drop the kids off at school, go to work, come back, meet the kids at home, do the homework, right? Everything changed from that one single song that we switched.
And that was something you touched on in the video too, was you were talking about Dr. Emoto's work with cymatics and how, like, the words affect, the water and the ice and the frequency, right? Yeah. And I do think that is very relevant to what we're talking about, because Absolutely. That's something I've been sticking my toe in, or to steal a phrase from my friend Steven Stathis, I have half a butt cheek in, is how what we're saying directly affects, because it's frequency being projected at water, because we're mostly water, right? So everything you were talking about really ties in with that.
Well, we're mostly water, but we're 100% energy. Okay? So this energy is affected by frequency. And so what is in your environment? And I know some people are going to say to me, I can't change my environment. And I'm going to say to you, bullshit. Okay? I didn't say it was going to be easy, but you can change your environment. If someone lives in clutter, it affects their vibration. It creates vibration clutter in their head. They can't think straight. Clean the house. Your exterior reflects what's going on inside. So if your exterior is cluttered, that means your mind is cluttered. So you need to let go of stuff. You need to clean. That's what the clutter is trying to show to you. The third dimension is reflecting your inner image. That's what it's for. Now, I mean, I know some people hate me when I say this, but this is a play. None of this is real. This is all a creation. So why are some people rich and why are some people poor? Because the people who are poor think they deserve to be poor. Maybe not on the surface, but deep in their subconscious. There's a French expression. It's you can have an heritage from your family, but you can have an heritage from your let's say either like my friend, she's Polish, right? So she has a Polish heritage that comes into play. You can have a native heritage that comes into play. So you can actually have an identity, national identity that comes into play. All of those things make you think you should act or dress in, a certain way, right? And so you have to break down these barriers and start deciding, no, this is wrong, or, this is outdated. This needs modernizing. This needs, calibration. Like I said, the moment I decided that I wasn't going to work hard anymore, it doesn't mean I don't work. I'm in my office 16 hours a day, but it's not hard. It flows pretty naturally and it comes easily. When I need an editor, I find the editor. When, there's still work to be done. I'm still sitting in this computer for quite a few hours every day. So I'm not just collecting checks sitting in the living room couch, but it's not hard anymore, right? So in the same way, you have to start examining your life and you have to bullet point everything you don't like. A little bit like you did in that, when you woke up and you said, okay, I'm not destroying my kitchen anymore. I'm not going to drink anymore. This is obviously not working for me. So you started making big decisions, big changes. So in the same way, no matter what it is, if you think every time I get a car, I get a lemon, well, you literally threw that to the universe, right? So we need to watch what we say. How does it come out? What are you saying about yourself? Now, I don't know how many times I'm training people in different work settings, right? Not just the spiritual work setting. And they'll say, oh, I'm so dumb, right? We've heard people say that all the time. And I said, please don't say that. And they're looking at me and said, you're in the process of learning. It's okay if you made a mistake, right? So that changes the whole frequency of it all. You're not stupid. You're not dumb. You made a mistake and it's okay. You're learning right now. So just let it go, right? So, and I invite the people in the conversation. We got a lot of people making comments. And if you have an example that we can discuss live, I'm always open for that as well, right? So, but if you have another one what is there something that you would like to change in your life done?
I think that would probably be the current living situation.
Okay, so you have to first off ask yourself, if you don't like this, what is it that you want? Right? That it's not like, it's like saying, I don't want to be a bad parent. Okay, great. So you already know, I don't want to beat my children up. I don't want to yell at my kids. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. That's fantastic. So you remove a whole bunch of stuff from the parenting pouch, but now your pouch is empty. So what does good parenting look like to you? And a lot of people I work with, they'll say, well, I have no clue because my upbringing was horrific and terrible. I'm like, okay, so you have to start. And I'm not, well, that's when I say, I'm not there to do it for you. I'm there to show you the journey, right? So then I say, okay, well, now it's time for you to go to the library and borrow books on parenting and try to see what do experts say about parenting? What do they say about you can try that, may solidify your relationship between the parent and the child, may open up communication channel, or, those are the things even if I tell you, you need to communicate well with your child, well, what does that look like? right? There's work involved. So deciding that you want to change is the first step. But the second step is, what do you want to change into? What is it that it, and we're not going to go on air about this, but there's reason why you want to change your living situation. And I don't know what it is. Like for me, my neighbor was quite nasty. and I told the universe, I said, well, if he can't be nice, I don't want to interact with him. And so all interaction stopped, which was fabulous, right? So I'm not wishing him any harm, but now I just kind of put up a light barrier saying, if you ain't going to be nice, you're not allowed in my space. Get out of my space, right? And turns out that eventually they sold, and we have a new neighbor who, you know, before even moving in, introduced himself and, you know, was all happy and cheery. So there's ways to talk, because your soul is constantly connected to God. We disconnect from the soul, but the soul is always in contact. So the minute you start vibrating and it doesn't have to be a sainthood level, okay, but making an effort in maintaining a positive energy, you can tell the soul, you know, this needs to change because this is affecting me negatively, or I need to grow this, or whatever it is. And then listen. Either things happen by themselves, which is always lovely, or you will be hinted. People will come in and say, hey, did I hear right that you applied for this job? And you're like, no, but I'm going to do that when I get home tonight. Because that means there's an opening waiting for you. And this is the universe saying, and don't forget to apply for this job. This is important.
That is so synchronistic. I was going to say ironic, but no, that's not the right word.
Synchronistic is a good word.
You just hit the nail right on the head, except it's twofold. We live in a single wide, which I don't mind because, like I said, I've been homeless and this is better than that. But on both sides of us, neighbors that are hard to deal with, and that's why we kind of want to move. Like, it's a 40-year-old trailer, but that's not the biggest fault. It's the kooky neighbors is the politest way I can put it, that make us feel very uncomfortable in our own home.
Well, there you go, right? So maybe you're in the right place. You just don't have the right neighbors. Something as simple as, I know that we always do a land blessing when we move somewhere new, to thank the land for having us, thank the earth for providing for us, because we have gardens and we have fruit trees, right? So we do this blessing ceremony. And I remember my roommate being in tears, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, well, I just took a walk outside and I touched the tree and I heard the tree say, thank you for the blessing. No one's ever done that for us. So, it was like, oh, okay, well, the trees appreciated the blessing. I'm sure that if we laid down on the earth and we'd ask the earth itself would say, wow, thank you for appreciating and, you know, giving us this extra energy. So there's ways for you to make your bubble literally a bubble. So we have bubbles around our bodies, but we can put bubbles around anything. When I drive a car, I put a bubble around the car. And I make sure that there's, sorry about that. I make sure that there's a light in front of the car so that no wildlife will come and throw themselves in front of my car. They usually, and it's funny because my roommate says they're literally always waiting on the side of the road for you to pass. And I'm like, there's kind of a wave of energy that rides in front of the car, letting them know now's not a good time to cross. Just don't cross right now.
That is just wild, because like so much of that is relevant to what's going on. Like, and I did write something down, and I'm just going to skip to it for a second. In the video, you were talking again about how what we hear is what affects us in our reality. And me and Steven talked about medical hexing, but one I didn't get to talk about was one you actually specifically mentioned in the video, is hearing the words, "You'll never walk again." Mm-hmm. I actually heard those words after a motorcycle accident, and my immediate reaction was, this guy was the best surgeon in Ontario. He was the one who treats the royal family if they get a boo-boo. I laughed at him. And he's like, what? I'm like, you don't effing know me. Now, the first time I took my hands off the parallel bar, I fell flat on my face and almost broke my nose. because I thought I was just going to do that thing like it just didn't happen. Oh no, it was months and months and months of learning to walk and multiple surgeries. But I now walk unassisted. And the last thing I did was walked in and shook the man's hand and told him he was wrong.
Yeah. But they actually did a study that doctors are not allowed to tell people they're dying, because literally, if a doctor tells you that you're dying, they have authority, and that literally, there's a part of you that just says, "Oh well, I'm gonna die," and people were dying faster than those being told, "There's hope. We can change things. There's things we can do." Even if the doctor thinks they're a lost cause, they're going to die. Like pancreatic cancer, usually people's at maximum have a 6 months, to live when you get diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. On my trip to Korea, I met a lady from France, which I want to say hi to. She's been battling pancreatic cancer for 6 years now.
Really?
Yeah. So, and she's like, they're not gonna get me. I'm not giving up. I have so much to live for. And I'm like, okay. I said, that's fantastic. So I said, now you ready to switch this battle? And she looks at me. She's like, what do you mean? I said, are you ready to deal with what causes your cancer? There's a message hidden in your cancer. If we can address the message, if you can understand what the message is, you can let go of the cancer. The cancer can let go of you because you received the messages and you acted on what needs to be acted on. So this lady is coming for a visit and she's going to be working on that but that's how powerful your beliefs and your thoughts are.
And I totally agree. And I know he's watching at home. I have a friend, and people have heard me talk about him on the show before. He goes by Cheech. His name is Lee, and he's waiting for a double lung transplant and a heart. And the doctors have told him multiple times he should be dead. They offered him the MAID program. And he has kicked their asses so many times that they're now doing case studies on him because the guy's a phenomenon. He shouldn't be able to walk on his own, but he walks in and tells fart jokes at his appointments because he's just giving them a giant middle finger. They're like, how are you functioning on that little oxygen, sir? And he just smiles and does his tests and blows them away. It is all about attitude and is all about believing what you believe, and he wants to be here.
Yeah, exactly. But now we need to, one of the things that I do with people is I acknowledge that and I celebrate their fighting spirit. And then I tell them, but there's no need for you to fight. You can I'm not saying give up. On the contrary, I'm just saying, let's open that book and see why do you have that? Why is this happening to you? What is the message behind this? What is that experience? Because that's also very important. Every single experience in our life lead us to this moment, right? So you said you were homeless, but that experience of you being homeless leads you to today saying things can change. It's not because you were homeless that you were a lost cause, right? And so you're able to tell people homelessness is something that can be changed. We can get out of that. We can get our life back, but we need something to help us cross over. So I don't know how you went from homeless to not being, but there's some people are so full of judgment. I think that's one of the toughest things to fight is the judgment, is looking at people's eyes and going, don't look at me that way and don't treat me that way. I had, I don't know why she's popping in my head now, but I had a mother-in-law who thought that I came from a poor background, so I was never going to amount to anything good, and so I was not good enough for her son. I was 14 years old. I was like, way to judge somebody.
Oh yeah, because you definitely know who you are at 14.
Or I mean, my dad didn't like people to know how much money he had, because in his subconscious he figured if I show off that I'm doing well, someone's going to come and take it away from me. Someone's going to steal it from me, right? And that comes from things that did happen in his life when he was young. So we didn't have fancy furniture. My dad drove the company car and he was perfectly happy not to buy a car, and it was fine for him, right? But that didn't mean I was poor or that I was stupid or that I would never amount to anything. Like, wow, right?
Yeah.
But when and that was just the mother-in-law, so it didn't have a whole lot of effect or impact on my life, right? It was just very disappointing to see that this person was judging a 14-year-old so harshly,
Yes.
right? But when you're being judged that way by a teacher or a parent or someone, a coach, right, a choir person, you lend power to what they're saying, and then you stop doing something that you know you shouldn't be stopping. Like, I had a choir lady who told me I can't sing, so I stopped singing. And I love singing, so I sing in the car, I sing in the shower, and I attended church and I was singing, and then the choir master came to see me after, and I'm thinking, oh, he's gonna tell me don't sing in church. Right? Because my singing is so bad. And he's like, can you join the choir? I'm like, this is a joke, right? He's like, no. I'm like, but I was told I had a horrible voice. He says, well, you're no soprano, you're a tenor, but he says your voice is amazing and beautiful. I was like, and then I didn't hate the person who told me you can't sing. I hated myself for letting that person change that view that I had of myself.
Yeah. No, and that does happen.
If there's anything I hope anyone takes away tonight, is that stop being mad at other people and start, asking yourself, why did I give my power away? Because that's a form of giving my power away, right? When you believe something that someone tells you without fact checking with yourself first, or without even trying, because someone told you, yeah, you shouldn't try. Why bother? You're not good enough, and you just go along with whatever they're saying. That's the biggest loss of yourself when you do that.
I totally agree, and I'm just sitting here running through the times I've done that in my own head. It's like, wow, she's absolutely right. Like, people do gaslight you and do like not even trying, like, and it's probably because you'll do something that they can't. And I'm not trying to sound snarky or like we're better, but
or it's something they don't even understand or comprehend.
That's the other end of it too.
Music for me is it's one of the ways that I connect to the universe, to God. Music is really important in my life. So to stop singing was basically closing one of the channels through which I connected before. Right?
No. And I think it's soothing and healing as well. Like, I don't even realize I'm doing it anymore. Like, we were talking about being in public, I just go with the biggest shit-eating smile I can because I gotta go, so I'll enjoy it. I unfortunately had to stop for fast food because we ran short on groceries because I worked like 21 out of the last 22 days or some stupid thing like that. So I went to Popeyes because they cook in beef tallow, and it's like, okay, at least I know this isn't terrible, terrible for me. And the lady was singing at the window, and she was an African American lady. And this is in downtown Calgary. And I turned and looked at her and kind of forgot myself. I'm like, you have a beautiful voice. And my wife is on the phone and she's like, what? And I'm like, this lady, she's singing and she has a wonderful voice. And the lady's looking at me with like just scanning for snark. Is this guy being an asshole? Like, what? And I was like, no, you really do. And she's like, thank you. And like just gave me my food and was kind of bashful about it. And I was like, oh, right. Normal people don't do that shit. I can't do right. But it was this soothing melody coming with my food. And I was like, why, thank you. You have a wonderful voice. And she's just, people don't do it, but they need to because other people need it. Like,
and that's the thing. I think I'm not saying that, when I say we need to reactualize the rules of society, I'm not saying that everybody should start fornicating on the corner square or, but I'm saying that things like that, right? That there's nothing wrong with you singing at work. You're not hurting anybody. It's not distracting from the work that you're doing. So it's actually making it more beautiful, right? We need to be more accepting of, those things.
Yeah.
So, do you have any questions for me? I talk a lot, but I know you had questions prepared.
No, and this is why I love our conversations. But one of the things you talked about on the video, and I'd love I know it was 6 years ago, so if it's not verbatim, I get it because it was a fascinating explanation of natural healing versus modern medicine. And I don't know if you remember the the subject matter, but you had mentioned like the differences of like what the medical society is and what natural healing is, because I think that's a very important part of this as well.
Okay, so you want me to elaborate on what I think about that?
Yes, if you could.
Okay, well, I don't remember what I said in the video.
Okay,
But
I'll paraphrase. I'll paraphrase if you want. You were talking about how you can speak to your body like we were talking about, but basically the medical system is just kind of to create a customer and mask symptoms. Um,
oh yeah, well the okay, well I'm a shaman, right? So the shaman's work is not to put band-aids on you. The shaman work is more about ripping you open and making you look deep inside yourself and say, this is what the issue is, right? There's different ways about which we can do that as a shaman, and the working on belief is one of those ways, because that's one of the ways that makes you sick. You not listening to a certain message. So, for example, you get a headache. So I'm sure that everybody watching this video will go and take some painkillers. I don't want to name brand because I don't want to promote one over the other, but you take some pills, the headache goes away, right? And what do? You don't question what the headache is there. You don't question, the message. Why is your body sending you this message? You're just masking the symptoms. Now, because we live in a society that's more and more based on consumerism and production, we're not encouraged to take the time to say, well, I'm not feeling well. I'm having this huge headache. Perhaps I should take some time to do introspection at this point and figure out what the headache means, right? This is something that you could do before industrialism, but it's people don't expect you to do that. I'm paying you from 9 to 5. You're going to work from 9 to 5. I don't care how you feel. You're here right now. You're not productive. Get back to production, right? So eventually the headaches turned into migraines. And now you go see the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, no problem. I got another pill for you, right? So we keep masking these symptoms. But now the pain is growing. Now, the pain of the headaches could be a tumor eventually. It could be something more serious. But no one is actually stopping to ask me, geez, it's funny. Your headaches are getting more and more frequent and more painful. What's happening to you? They just keep prescribing more and more pills. Up to a point where I'm like, okay, well, now I'm taking pills, and the minute I take the pill, I pass out. So now I'm not productive at all, and I wake up, and I'm not even 100% because I'm still woozy from the pills I'm taking, which hasn't solved at all the issue of the headache. And so I started taking notes. I started exploring and the headache would always come after staring at the computer for long hours or having a lot of reading to do. And then I got tested, and it turns out that I need glasses. I need glasses to read, and I have a special filter in these glasses for the blue light. And I no longer have headaches or migraines or any pain, right? So that's, for years, I've been taking medication, right, affecting my body chemistry with all these pills, when all I needed was a pair of glasses. So that's an easy example. Another example, my brother, I had that backache. He hurt himself at work. So he took painkillers, right? Just like me, the pain kept getting worse and getting worse. So they just would give him more and more pills until eventually the doctor says to him, he says, I think you're an addict and you just come here for pills. my brother says, I've been having back pain for years now, and you've never done anything to figure out what's wrong with me. So instead of calling me an addict, perhaps you should have years ago just send me for tests to figure out what the pain is. Maybe it's not this old injury. Maybe it's something else. Well, the doctor finally sent him for some testing. He had 3 months left to live. He had kidney cancer, and the kidney cancer had metastasized and basically was half of his body. Right? But all this time, he was trying to be the good guy. He was trying to show up at work. He was trying to be productive. He was, wouldn't take a day off because, he wasn't lazy. He was a good guy. He was, So because of all these things, instead of saying, well, I'm in pain, I need to take care of myself, he just kept pushing. Meanwhile, he never got the message, more subtle message when it started. And it eventually developed into the cancer, which metastasized. And no wonder he was in pain and the painkillers weren't working anymore, right? And he did die a few months later. So we need to stop accepting just, and I just despise this when I go see the doctor and they say, I think that. Okay, well, let's make sure that, okay? I don't have a problem with it being just irritable bowel syndrome. I'm glad that that's all it is, but I would like to make sure that it is, and it's not something like colon cancer or something terrible that we're just going to snuff with some medication, and then 3 years from now, I'm going to just die because I waited too long to get the proper testing. And right, it's our body. We have a right to be treated and be get the right answers. We live in Canada. I mean, for us up here, there is a medical system that we're entitled to get some testing done. Then do the tests, make sure that that's all that's wrong with me, and then I'll deal with it. But I just want to make sure it's not some underlying condition that we're masking with this pill and that pill.
Well, that's actually, I'm going to be personal here. A lot of people know that I lost my gallbladder in November because of peritonitis and a cardiac incident. Yeah, and I kind of go on record and say I don't think they got everything, because I'm starting to experience gastric pain again, to like the point where it feels like I'm having some type of, numbness and severe pain and stuff. And it's like, okay, then clearly you didn't get everything out, did you? Like,
so do you want my personal opinion on that?
I would love it.
So my opinion is going back to what I was just saying. There's a message your gallbladder was trying to say to you, but you didn't get the message. Instead, you remove what was the messenger. You know, when they say don't shoot the messenger, well, you completely shot the messenger and you just said to the messenger, oh, you're gone. Right? Now, you won't give me any more pain, but your soul is saying, Dawn, you really need to hear this. So I'm afraid we're going to have to send another messenger, because you need to hear this. You need to understand this, and you need to explore this. And this is where we're at in our journey of self-exploration and self-healing. And that's why the pain is back. You didn't solve the problem by removing the gallbladder. You just shot the messenger.
Makes sense.
You still need the message, and you still need to change what needs to be changed or heal what needs to be healed.
That makes sense.
So this is the way that we here, and I say we, I mean in a general environment of people who know me, when something goes wrong, they'll usually call me first. And they'll say, okay, well, this is going on. This is now aggravated itself. And what do you think this means? I said, well, let's explore that together. Let's have a session. Let's go into the meaning of your body talks to you. What is the message? And then when we get the messages, they have to act on it. So I'm not allowed to talk about, I usually give examples. My brother's dead, so I can talk about him. And I will talk about myself, but I won't talk about other people. But if your heart hurts, it's because your heart's broken. If your heart's broken, we need to explore why is it broken, how did it get broken, and how can we repair it? But from that moment on, once I've told you this is what's causing your broken heart, this is what we can do to heal your heart, and you refuse to do it, and you have a heart attack and die, you can only blame yourself at this point.
Makes sense.
So it's not just about hearing the message, it's about acting on the message.
That makes sense.
Right? So I like to teach with images. So I'm telling you, your transmission's about to fall off of the car. You need a new transmission. But once you put a new transmission in, there won't be any problem with the car. You're like, oh, great, thanks. At least I know what's wrong. It's fantastic. And you keep driving on this thing, and then the transmission blows up, and then you end up in the ditch, and you have a broken leg, and you're like, I don't know why this happened. Right? You're like, actually, let's stop for a second. You did know that the transmission was, needing repair. You were aware of that. You just ignored the fact, and now there's more dire consequences that you're suffering from because you chose to ignore the warnings. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong getting a second opinion. If you don't think you need a true transmission, go to a second garage, get another mechanic's opinion. But you should ignore the very clear messages that are being sent to you. and then then blame the universe for being terrible to you.
Which leads me back to what I'm about to say. I think I'm going to have to book a Psych session with you. And so let's get to the basics of it. Who invented Psych?
Psyche was created by Rob. Oh, he just passed away last year. Rob Williams. And about 35 years ago, he was a clinician. He was I think he was a counselor or a psychologist or something like that. And he received a download of information that told him that what needs to happen is we need to change these songs in the jukebox, first off. And then we also need to balance both brains. So Psyche is about transforming the subconscious beliefs, but also balancing the left brain and the right brain. What does that mean? Is that, one of your brain is very mathematical, very sciencey, very, black and white kind of thing. And then the other one is very artsy, it's very emotional. They're very different. So when you're about to make a decision, you need to be able to have a balanced brain to make those decisions. You can't be overly emotional because then you're forgetting all the important facts. Like when I told my son, I said, you wanted to buy a car? I said, I'll go with you. And then he went, oh. I was like, so what's the problem? He said, I'm not sure if I'm going to get the car I want. I said, well, what's important to you? And then we'll see. So we went to the garage, and then the guy's trying to say that if you buy a black car, there's a surcharge for the black paint. Oh, yeah, they do that now. So I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, so which one is paint free? Because it has to have paint on it. So what does it matter if it's white paint, black paint, orange paint? It's paint. But he's like, well, the white one is free, but your son wants the black. I said, my son will take the white. So the salesperson turns to my son and he says, but you said you wanted black. He says, I would prefer if the car was black, but I'm not paying more for paint. That's ridiculous. So I will take the white car. And that's where the emotional decision and the logical decision are balanced, right? It'd be nice if I could get what I want, which is black. But you know what? What I really want is the car. So I'm not paying more money for paint color. Well, it turns out they couldn't find a white one anywhere, and they ended up getting the black one anyway. But now we're doing them a favor by taking the black one off their hands, so we didn't get charged for the extra paint color, right? So there's Psyche helps you be more balanced. Like I bought multiple houses, and because I was transferring a lot and moving around a lot, there was no point in me falling in love with the house. I needed the house to, when I move again in 3 years, to sell quickly. So the house had to be close to school, had to be close to transit, right? There's all these things that makes a house easy to sell. So I would be very logical about the houses that I bought, and because I was only there for 3 years. So by the time I was ready to leave, it was time to leave anyway. Except this time, this is my last house. So I want to love this house because I'm going to be here for like 50 years. But I can't let my emotion overshadow the logic of it's only worth this much, right? So because I love it, I shouldn't pay more than what it's worth. So that's a balanced brain. So it helps you say, yes, you love this house, it has everything you want, but it's only worth this much. So you got to stick to your guns and not pay more than what it's worth. Don't let your emotion get the best of you.
That makes sense.
So,
and just on a side note, it's an absolutely gorgeous property, and every time I come down that hill, it's like, oh, there it is. I have a stop in Drumheller that I get to do once a month, so I'm like, oh, there it is.
And I'm saying we absolutely love it, but I was very balanced when I was negotiating for the price, because I didn't want to do like a lot of people that I know have done. Oh, but I love it, so I don't want to lose it. So they pay more than what they should have. And if someone had a cool head, they would have said, this is what it's worth, right? So it changes the way you live your life when you have balanced brain, because you don't get to tend to lose your mind over things that, get too logical and then forget that you're also emotions, right? So yeah, it helps, let's say for the unbalanced emotional, but I love him. Right? And then I tell people, great. Now you do the pro and cons list, please. That's your logical side brain, right? So then your logical side brain says, well, he doesn't pay for his share, and then he used my car and crashed it, and then I think he might have cheated on me, but I'm not sure. But so okay, so now logically, yes, you love him, but logically, is this a good relationship? Is this a relationship that you can be in without renegotiating the term or talking at least about how you feel about this, right? So it works both sides.
I totally dig that, and I've actually been trying to do a lot of that myself lately. I've even been listening to guided meditations with neuro editing that stimulates hemispheric thinking. But what tips or hints would you give to people to sort of help activate or exercise that multi-hemispheric thought?
Hmm. Whenever you need to make a decision, right? So there's the subconscious, right? So we talked about that earlier, where you need to do an introspection inventory of your belief system. And you need to go and see if in there's I'm not worthy of being loved. I'm born for small bread, which means it's a badly translated French expression that means that you were born to be poor. I'm never going to be good at this. I can't learn anything new, right? So all of these, that's the subconscious part of Psych. We need to go and do the inventory and see what is sabotaging you, right? So that's super important, and that's not something that you do in 15 minutes. That's something that takes several hours. Even if you do it with me, which I know how to do it, it still takes 2 to 3 hours to do a really good inventory and start picking up all of these very important messages. There's books that you can purchase from Louise Hay, for example, or others that have messages from your body. So you can say, okay, so my gallbladder hurts. You flip the gallbladder, and it tells you exactly what the message is for the gallbladder. Like for the liver, not the gallbladder, but for the liver is resentment. And I mean, I had a really, 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 really bad marriage and a horrible divorce, and oh my gosh! But every time anything had to do with him, my liver hurt. Right. So, but now I know resentment is liver. Oh, okay. So I would literally, and it always happened when I was driving for some reason. I would park on the side of the road. I would take deep breaths, and right away I would say, I'm letting this go. There's a solution, and the solution will come to me. There's no need for me to be resentful. It's just one more step towards my freedom. And, and that's how I worked with the message of my body. So you don't have to pay me every time you get a message from your body. You can buy the books a lot cheaper, right? So the one I'm using is Louise Hay. And what she says to do is to look in the mirror and do the affirmation. I tried that. It took me 3 years. Psych takes 5 minutes. So I much prefer Psych for, it's almost automatic. But the messages are available out there. There's several books in French, in English that have been written by people who give you the messages. So it's just finding who resonates the most with you. I find the most straightforward is Louise Hay. But she doesn't have necessarily all the conditions in there. So it's always nice. I have 3 that I work from, right? So, but they all pretty much say the same thing about the liver. They all say the same thing about lungs. They all the same, right? So that's the message from your body. Now, for working with the 2 brains, the easiest thing would be the first one is the pro and con. Try to see, are you honest here? Are you really being honest with yourself in the situation, or are you just lying because you just want what you want, right? And then what could help is, but not everybody has that. I certainly didn't have it for many years, is someone that you can discuss it with. So like when I bought this house, I had my roommate who was going to live with me. So I had to call her and tell her about the house. She's like, wow, you really love the house. I'm like, well, yeah, I do. So now I said, help me be reasonable about the price. And see, someone suggested Metaphysical Anatomy by Yvette Rose. So that's another book that someone could get for the messages from the body. And I have 3 or 4, so there's lots of them out there. But it's nice to have someone else helping you keep in check with things until you can do it for yourself. But I find that with all the abuse that I went through and all the hypervigilance and all of the mental stuff that happened to me, I'm very grateful to have a roommate with who I can bounce things off of, because I'm not so deluded of myself that I know everything, and having someone else support what I'm trying to create or do or is nice, right? But it took years for this person to come into my life, and so yeah.
It really is helpful because, like I said, I don't think I'd be able to be going through half a tenth of what I've been going through without somebody to talk to, because I'm I'm going to admit I've actually spent time in a psychiatric ward, and I'm pretty sure this was the reason why, because last time this happened to me, I went nuts. Like when all of the understanding started, I was much younger and didn't understand what was happening, and turned to a psychiatrist, and they decided it was better that I be medicated and in a room for a little bit because I sounded fucking insane.
Stay away from those.
Yeah. And then they gave me some labels and some medication and a whole bunch of other things, but it actually just turns out I knew what the hell I was talking about the entire time, and I really shouldn't tell them about it.
It's one of the reasons why I stayed in the black hole for a little while longer, because I was like, if I tell anybody about this, I'm gonna end up in the padded room and I'm gonna throw away the key, and no one's gonna know where I am. I mean, it took years for me to be out in the open, and I mean, writing books about it and doing podcasts about it, because I had to get over that fear, and the fear was real because in the past life that cost me my life, right? So yeah.
Even 29 years ago, they weren't ready for it.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you.
I started spouting this stuff off, and they're like, "You're nuts. Here's some pills. Go to sleep."
Right? Don't mention this to anybody else. Yeah. I do agree that the world has really changed. Even the view of the medical field, because I help. I do energy healing for people getting chemo. And in the hospital, they don't see you as a woo-woo now. The doctors and nurses will say, Reiki has been found in some cases to be really helpful with the aftermath of the symptoms. And so the view of this is changing, which is great. And never will I say don't get the radiation, don't get the chemo. That's not my role. But I'll say, if you're going to get radiation, if you're going to get chemo, then I'd be lovely to accompany you on your journey and send you energy healing so that, we can lessen the after effects or the symptoms that come after chemo. Like I had a client that says, well, I want the chemo because otherwise I'll be living in fear. I said, well, you don't want that. So I said, that's fine, have the chemo. And they're like, but can you make the energy session that everything that I don't need will go out and pee kind of thing? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then she called me back and she's like, I spend my entire time peeing on the toilet. So I was like, oh, there you go. I guess you didn't need it after all, right? And I'm doing this long distance, so it's not like I'm in her brain or I'm brainwashing her or anything, right? I'm in my own living room. I'm sending the energy. I'm sending the healing, and I'm saying to universe, if it's not needed, she just wants it to get straight through her bladder and just pee it right out. And I've had some people who right off the bat would have me with their chemo treatment, and they're like, well, I don't think we need next week because I haven't had any symptoms. I'm doing fine. This is great. I'm like, okay, because again, I'm not there to interfere right? I'm there to respect your freedom of choice. And she called me back after 2 days. She's like, okay, that was a huge mistake. Apparently, the reason why I don't have symptoms is because I've been getting the Reiki. So next week, definitely, I want the Reiki, and my appointment's at this time that day. So, and some chemo is different, right? Some is once a month, some it's every week. Everything is different now. But this lady was every week, and she was like, I'm fine. I don't send the Reiki, and she's like, I was like, yeah, I think I do.
Yeah. I've shared this before, but I love sharing it with you. I was just talking earlier about still having some gastrointestinal issues. Cannot thank you enough for teaching my wife Reiki because she can now make me fart. And,
It helps, doesn't it? There's nothing worse.
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's
So,
giggling in the other room now.
I'm not demonstrating what Psych looks like because I can do Psych long distance as well. So you don't need to be in the same room as me to do the Psych. It's actually Psych is regulated by the person who created it. And one of his rules is that he doesn't want a public demonstration because he doesn't want people to copycat someone who's trained to do it properly. So I honor and respect that, right? So, and I get it because again, like the Reiki, you're not supposed to share the Reiki name and symbols in public. It should be shared amongst those in the know. And now they're everywhere on the internet. And some people have pretended that, they know how to do Reiki just because they've seen the symbol on the internet. They're like, oh, this is easy. I can do this, right? So I can't really demonstrate the action that takes place in the session, but I can, understand, explain the process of it.
No, and absolutely, I would always recommend going to a trained practitioner, even with energy work and Psych, because like you actually learn the ins and outs of it. Like you can, like she said, you can learn anything on the internet, but it doesn't mean you're doing it right. I have learned that multiple times from trying to fix things with YouTube videos. I'm a fairly handy guy. Some things are a little too tinkery and a little beyond my understanding in this reality. And I generally end up screwing things up and breaking it. So, yeah.
Well, I'm all for warranty, but when it's out of warranty, I found a few good, video on YouTube that were helpful, like the washing machine code and whatever else. But that doesn't make me a plumber or a repair person. It just means that in this instance I could fix this, but I wouldn't call myself an expert. And so I think it's because I think it's not regulated as much. It's some people take liberties, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But you can tell who's good and who's not, I think, in the end. By talking to them and without necessarily testing them, but you can see if they know what they're talking about or not by having a conversation. It wouldn't be any different than, choosing a plastic surgeon or whatever, right? There's a lot of them out there, sure, but which one will understand what my needs are and not just do it for the money and do it with a compassionate way, right? We're all looking for different things. Like, I usually am the last resort and the blunt person you need to tell you, wake up, smell the coffee. That's who I attract. People have tried everything. They went everywhere and, they're like, what do I have to lose? And then all of a sudden everything changes for them. But they need to be shaken up a little bit and they need to start looking at their own belly button, right? It's like, how are you causing this? So I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm not going to tell you, I just, for the fun of it, in Korea, there was these, I don't know if they're real nuns, but they were what appeared to be a nun with a shaved head wearing the gray suit of a Buddhist nun. And they were reading fortunes for people. So I was like, I got 15 minutes to kill. Why not? Right. And she's like, what kind of reading do you want? I said, and let's be clear, I can get all the messages and all the answers that I need. So it's not like I need this, right? I'm doing this for fun. And I said, well, what about a fortune reading, which is what does the universe in I Ching have planned and prepared for you? So she goes off and she's like, oh, you're single. I'm like, yeah, I've been single for quite some time. She's like, there's a middle-aged man. And I'm thinking, well, that's not vague. he's coming and he's wise and handsome and he's rich. And I'm thinking that's what, any kind of girl would want to hear about, her future boyfriend, husband, or whatever, right? He's rich, he's wise, he's good looking. Great. She's like, you're so lucky. Anything else? She's like, no, aren't you happy with that? I'm like, no.
Give me my $5 back.
So it's like, is that all you have to say? Okay, so do I look that desperate? All right. So it's interesting because it might happen, who knows, but she didn't inspire the trust in me to say that I'll take this word to my grave and firmly hold on to this. It was just so wishy-washy what she was saying. She's like, it'll happen when you're, I don't know, it sounded like 80 years old, and I'm like, well, I won't wait then. It's like, no, I meant how old are you? Next year, 2 years, maybe 3. Oh, okay, so sometime in the future. So, from an interaction with someone, and that's the other thing. Before hiring any professional, they should be able to have a free meeting with you to answer your questions that you may have about whatever process you're about to embark on, whether it's Reiki, whether it's Psyche, whether it's shamanism, whatever it is. You should be able to ask as many questions as you have, and you should feel perfectly confident and safe to enter into, whatever it is that you want to go for. If the person is bitchy with you, if the person doesn't want to answer your question, then I would suggest that might not be the person for you to go. So, I'm not here saying I'm the only person that does this, but I'm saying that whoever you pick should be, if you say, I want to see your training, I want to see your certificate, I want to, how does this go about? Do you have any reference that I could contact? All of those things, those should all be available to someone who is, ready to embark on this journey.
And I think that's really solid advice for anything, I guess you would call it, in the quantum healing field, working with energy, working with hypnosis, any of that. And I know this is going to set Kyla off in the chat. You always want to research your practitioners, because we had a very poor experience with a hypnosis practitioner that came in trusted and then abused her ability and the vulnerability of her clients, being my wife. And yeah, you definitely want to validate that this isn't just some half-ass that learned it off the internet, because it gets dangerous when you're in other people's hands in quantum realms or energetic fields.
Yeah, because you're I have to watch what I say. But you don't want to give away your power to anyone. Anyone who tells you, I'll do this for you, you should be aware of, right? This should never be about what they can do for you, is how they can work with you in order for you to activate the healing that is required. And that's essential. So none of those techniques are about me doing something to you. This is all about us working together, using the knowledge that I have to guide you so that you can affect the change in your life, in your body, in your soul.
I completely agree with that. And yeah, I knew she was freaking out in the chat. But yeah, you don't know. I don't even know if I would ever do I don't mind guided meditation, but I don't know if I would ever go full-blown hypnosis again, because that kind of vulnerability, after seeing what she did, I don't know if I trust it. I would have to really be in a state of trust with the person.
So this is actually a good important point, because Psyche has nothing to do with hypnosis. You do the entire process of changing your subconscious while you're very awake, completely aware, and you're the one who says, this is what I want. So, the example is, I don't want this to be hard anymore. I don't mind working, and it doesn't have to be hard. The other one that literally changed my life, completely sold me on Psyche, and that's why I started doing Psyche with people. And the only reason why I don't teach Psych is because it's a very complicated, expensive process to go through, and we decided to instead open a retreat center and invest the money here instead, because it would be as expensive as getting a master's and doctorate.
Holy shit.
It's extremely expensive to be able to teach Psych. So that's why it's not that I don't want to teach it. I just don't think it's worth the investment they're requiring me to do. Yes. Canadian Spinja says, with Akashic Records course from Sonya, you learn to do it for yourself. It's true. There's different ways, right? There's different doors that allow you to get in. But someone who is in the desperate state, or really need to change their life, and they need a push, they need a shove. Psyche is the great for that, because we can transform really key elements that are sabotaging you and allowing you to open up and finally start going in the right direction again. But all of it is done with you wide awake and you deciding this is what needs to change for me. Like some people came to me and they've been passed over for a promotion because they couldn't learn a second language. And so we did Psych on why you're so blocked about the second language. Well, speaking Spanish, where they're from, meant that you were a loser. So that's why they couldn't learn Spanish, because speaking Spanish meant you were a loser. So we have to undo this, from their childhood, and then poof, all the doors opened, and they all of a sudden finally could grasp Spanish, and they got a promotion, right? So there's many ways to work on it, but sometimes I think that Psyche is the one that gives us the biggest shove if you're really stuck, so you can get pulled out of that tar pit and shake it off, and then say, okay, I can go in this direction. But the idea, oh, sorry.
I was going to say,
for you to be independent. It's for you to be independent, right? Like Canadian Spin just says, once you take a class and you learn how to do it for yourself, you know how to do it for yourself. Exactly. That technically I'm shooting myself in the foot by teaching you how, because you don't come to me every month to get a session. But that makes you dependent on me. And that's not what I want. I don't want a bunch of dependents. I want a bunch of empowered individuals who are completely in control of their life and their direction that they're taking. So now, Don, before I rudely interrupted you.
No, it's the 2-second delay, and it gets me every time. I always end up tripping over myself. It's like, oh. It's like double Dutch. Okay, where do I go? Where do I go? So one of the other ones that you were mentioning about Psyche, and one of the ways to change, is speaking positively about yourself and communicating your abilities, which a lot of us are like afraid to do because, you sound like an egotistical asshole, or you're bragging, or blah, blah, blah. And we don't present ourselves enough to give ourselves the self-confidence to get the things that we want.
Well, it's funny because for my birthday this year, I was with my family in Quebec, and I was bragging about me. And someone mentioned at the dinner table, wow, there you go, bragging. And I'm like, you know what? It's my birthday. I'm the star of your life today. If you're here, it's because in some fashion, I have an impact in your life, and you thought it'd be a great idea to celebrate the fact that I was born into this world and that I still shine brightly in your life. So this person scratched their head and had the opposite effect of what I was intending. I said, there's nothing wrong for me to recognize that I'm a fabulous individual, and that people love me, and that I'm actually important as I walk on this earth on my birthday. I don't go around 365 days a year, but once in a while, I have to even recognize for myself, I am good at what I do. I am talented. I am beautiful. I am these things. So on my birthday, I put it in everybody's face, and then I leave you alone for 364 days. So, you got time to get used to it. But if you're good at something, you need to recognize it. Imagine that you have a dimmer switch, right? So in order to not ruffle anybody's feathers, you dim your light. Okay, so I actually have a dimmer, so I'm going to dim, okay? So I'm dimming because you might feel offended because I shine too brightly, I'm too brilliant, and I'm too, intelligent for you. And then we meet other people, and they also feel like you take too much room, and you're, you're you're taking our spot, and we have a hard time with holding our space. So could you take less room? And this is what literally happens to you. You're dimming until you are not who you could be, because you are the one in charge of your dimming. They may ask you to dim, you don't have to. And you can say, you know what? It's much easier if the light is shining and you can see clearly who I am. I'm not lying. I'm not, trying to lie to you or sell you something. This is me. And it took me 53 years to be me. So if you don't like it, you leave. But I'm no longer dimming my light or my power, because for God's sake, it took me 53 years to get here. Why on earth would I give you that power to lower me somewhere where I don't want to be?
Absolutely. And I think that is a phenomenal message and another takeaway point that I hope everybody was listening to. And I think the one that we should probably end this on, and we kind of laugh because, 90s kids and we think everything is funny. You touched on the phrase live in the now. And of course, we both went to Wayne's World. Live in the now, man. But it seriously is one of the most valid things that we need to do. And I'd love to get your thoughts on why it's important to live in the now, man.
Well, you can't judge someone for something that happened and what they did 20, 25 years ago. Obviously, if you would give me the same situation now, I have grown. I have learned my lesson. I realized that that was not the best solution. So I would choose a different outcome, right? So living in the now is as good for you, yourself, and how you judge yourself. It's always 20/20 vision and hindsight, right? And I was judging myself very harshly about my actions when I was 16, until I had to acknowledge to myself I was alone. I had been raped, I had been beaten, I had been abandoned, and I was doing the best I could on my own. And now I'm not the same person. So right here, right now, I am living the best life that I can. Now, that's not to say that 25 years from now, I will look at you, Don, over a cup of coffee, sitting on the beach going, yeah, remember that conversation? I had that one wrong, right? I don't know what it's going to be in 25 years. But right now, just as I did before, I am trying the best that I can. I live in honesty, in transparency, and I give everything I have 100%. Now, some days, if you were to measure my productivity, or you might say, well, Sonya, I don't think that's 100. I think you barely make it 20. Yeah, I know, but this is my best today. I can't give you more. Don't ask for it. I can't give you more. But I recognize that, and I love myself for that. Right? So before the show, we were talking that I lost someone really, 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 really important to me, and I'm really struggling. So some days, I'm trying. And I, even though I'm trying, it still feels like it's dragging. It feels like my mental process is slow. It doesn't feel like I'm, as efficient as I know I can be. But today, right now, I'm actually in front of the computer working. So I'm just celebrating that I made it that far. But living in the now also allows you to understand that it relieves you of judgment, right? Living in this moment, asking yourself, is this the best I can do? And I usually start my day with a connection to God, 5-10 minutes. And then I end my day going, could I have been kinder? Is there anything I need to apologize for? Is there something that I need to do differently? I constantly evaluate myself. So I don't take anything for granted. And I leave enough space for synchronicity to seep in, to try and guide me when I feel a little lost, or when I feel, something might be missing. Does that answer your question?
It really does. And I scribbled something down here because you touched on something like am getting my understanding and discovering all these wonderful things. And sometimes I feel like I'm the smartest person in the world. And then I have days like what you're describing. And Kyle and I will often look like we know that we're receiving information and this is all an experience, but we've coined the phrase still stuck in a human. And sometimes you react like a human and sometimes you feel like a human. You can know exactly how this projection into this biological vessel works and everything about this entire reality, but you're still stuck in a human. And
Yeah.
some days are gonna be like that. And it's something
I
you have
tell I tell my students that I am human, right? So that meaning that I have limitation to a certain degree. I have to feed this body. I have to rest this body. I have to exercise and stretch this body, and I also have emotions. And sometimes those emotions are, difficult to process, and they're not necessarily making sense because, you know, I'm also navigating these this learning. I'm also learning, right? So I'm not the end all be all, and I'm not God, right? However, what I can say is that I have been on this journey for a long time. I have learned a lot of processes that facilitates other people's journey, and in that fashion, I am a guide and a teacher. But I myself, I'm not going to stop growing. I'm not going to stop evolving just because all of a sudden I can share part of the journey with you. So I'm also in my own evolution and my own transformation and my own changes. And that's why we got to respect everybody where they're at, right? Um, Someone says, "Well, I want to be like you." I'm like, "Yeah, well, there's 40 years of journey, and you've been here for 2 days. Give yourself some time, you know." So, yeah, it. The best thing you can do in this human experience is to continuously work on improving and learning and evolving, and never stopping and saying, "I know enough." As long as you're alive, there's new opportunities showing up to teach you more or for you to share more. I think that in my life, I'm at a stage where I'm in a lot of the sharing part with the books and the being invited on other people's shows and running my own podcast and things like that. But I'm also still evolving and learning and creating, and so yeah, I think that's also part of living in the now. It's admitted that you've not reached the end of the road. And there's no end, and even if you die, there's no end. But for this life, that's when you stop. Until then, you got to keep going.
I think that's perfect. I think you summed that up wonderfully. Do you want to tell everybody what you've got coming up? Because I know you're working on a couple of things that we were talking about the other day just before we wrap up here. Then you can get everybody informed about what's coming up.
I always forget you're going to ask me that. I just enjoy looking forward to us talking. Okay, well, one thing is that we have the big fair at the end of September. It's a spiritual and metaphysical fair, and we have about 10 spots left. So if you're listening to this, if you're into this, and you live anywhere, we welcome Americans. We just never had Americans joining us for this, but we have people from Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, none of it coming. We have healers. We have people that are selling crystals and other things. So we as long as it's within the field of spirituality and metaphysical, you're welcome to our fairs. So there's that. That'd be nice to fill in those spots. And what do I have? The retreat for June is sold out. The retreat for July is sold out. So now we're having a shamanic retreat, August 15th to the 23rd. So that one is amazing. We also have a grief retreat. So if you've been suffered a loss and you're having a hard time processing that loss, processing those emotions, you need some guidance. That's a 4-day retreat that we're hosting here at the end of August. And I think we have some Reiki classes coming up.
That sounds awesome. And like I said, I'm going to figure out some financial stuff and touch base with you about a Psych session because I'm going to write a list. There's a few things that I want to work on because that's how we evolve. One thing I do want to ask is, I know Kyla and I are going to be attending that. Would you be cool if I threw on a live stream for a little bit to give everybody a peek of what's going on at the fair?
Oh, totally, totally.
Okay, so you guys can
And
look forward to that as well.
yeah, the fair is not just vendors. You also have 14 presenters that are giving talks on meditations, on creativity, on the meaning of color. There's, you know, these presenters are amazing, and this year we have a separate room for them, so you can really, we're expanding, we're growing. There's more vendors than last year, and so because it's a separate room, we're selling the tickets in advance for $10. And at the door there'll be 15, but it's for the entire weekend, so it's not like presenters or anything. So just to help us offset the cost of the extra room we're renting and all that. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, that sounds wonderful, and thank you so much for another wonderful conversation. I can't believe we just went through like almost 2 hours already. Um, I want to thank everybody that stopped by the chat and participated and tried to make me laugh. A couple of you got me. That's just a running game the audience has with me. If anybody's ever on my show and sees like obscure comments show up in the chat, I've challenged the viewers to like try to break me on camera sometimes, and I have the best viewers because they actually show up and do it. Like there's one Derek, big shout out to you. He invented the phrase "lonely fans," and I'm Don Rogers of Lonely Fans, because I don't have OnlyFans, I have Lonely Fans, right? And it's just this hilarious joke that's gone on since then. And I freaking love you, brother, because you've made me laugh so many times. Uh, as for everybody else, I want to thank you for showing up and for listening and for watching. And like I always say, if you can go outside, please do, because it's better than being in front of this screen. I love you guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.